I'm Christina Aguayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
A new charge for Letitia James's mortgage fraud case, as a document from Citizens Bank in 2021 shows she listed her Brooklyn property as a single-family home to get a $200,000 credit line mortgage. James is accused of misrepresenting her Brooklyn property, officially documented as a 5-unit building, as a single-family home on that 2021 mortgage application. The alleged misrepresentation allowed her to get lower interest rates and avoid the higher cost of a commercial loan, which is illegal and punishable by up to 15 years in prison. Reports show that James listed the same Brooklyn property as a 4-unit building on a different mortgage-related document separate from the 2021 Citizens Bank application. The 4-unit designation appears in earlier mortgage records, where James also allegedly listed her father as her husband. The Brooklyn property has been a focal point of the federal investigation launched by the FBI and U.S. Attorney's Office in Albany, New York, following an FHFA referral back in April. By listing the property as a 4-unit building in one instance and a single-family home in the other, James allegedly tried to exploit loopholes in lending practices. Residential loans for single-family or smaller multi-unit properties, typically 4 units or fewer, often have lower interest rates and less stringent requirements than commercial loans for 5-unit buildings. By James allegedly listing the property as both single-family home and 4-unit property, the mortgage fraud case against her could be strengthened. The ongoing DOJ investigation, led by Special Prosecutor Ed Martin, includes the Brooklyn property and her Virginia property, which she also listed as her primary residence. The investigation is looking into potential charges of wire fraud, mail fraud, bank fraud, and false statements to a financial institution, with grand jury proceedings active in Virginia and Maryland. Muslim groups in Texas are engaging in a campaign that targets local businesses, telling them to stop selling items that are haram, which are forbidden under Islamic law, like alcohol, pork, and gambling-related products. The groups are allegedly visiting businesses in person and warning business owners that they have 30 days to comply or face demonstrations outside of their businesses to, quote-unquote, educate people about Islamic law principles. It's happening in cities like Houston, Dallas, and Austin. Failure to comply, they warn, will lead to protests and those demonstrations intended to educate owners and the public about Islamic dietary and ethical laws. In Islamic tradition, the haram items are explicitly prohibited by the Quran or Hadith. Alcohol is forbidden because of its intoxicating effects. Pork is considered impure, and gambling is seen as promoting harmful behavior and unjust wealth distribution. The group say businesses need to adhere to these religious rules, saying that businesses selling the items violate moral and spiritual law. Some merchants, especially the ones in areas with high Muslim communities, say they will comply to avoid conflict. Others are refusing, saying imposing Islamic law in America is a violation of their right to operate freely. Texas is home to a growing Muslim population, estimated at well over 400,000. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, a billionaire, allegedly deliberately manipulated the property value of his Chicago mansion to get a major tax break. In 2016, Pritzker purchased a historic Gold Coast mansion in Chicago for about $3.7 million. It's next to his primary home, valued at more than $6 million. Reports allege that Pritzker had all 15 toilets removed from the secondary mansion so it could be classified as uninhabitable, right before a reassessment by the Cook County Assessor's Office, which drastically reduced the property's value from about $6.25 million to $1.1 million. As a result, Pritzker saved about $330,000 in taxes. Critics say that removing the toilets was a deliberate ploy to exploit a loophole in Illinois property tax law. By making the mansion uninhabitable, Pritzker allegedly manipulated the system to lower his tax liability, a move seen as egregious considering he has a net worth of $3.6 billion. RFK Jr. is exposing the truth about the hepatitis B vaccine for babies, saying you have to give 7 million doses to save one life. The information came out during a Senate hearing on Capitol Hill, where Kennedy detailed the facts to Democrats who were trying to attack his stance on vaccines. He said there are 2 hepatitis vaccines, and one of them had a safety study that lasted for 4 days on 143 kids. on a product that's going to be given to 76 million kids. The risk profile for babies prior to the introduction of the vaccine, he said, from hepatitis B was 1 in 7 million. That means you need to give 7 million hepatitis B vaccines to prevent one death. RFK Jr. is likely referencing a clinical trial for Recombivac's HB or Engerix B, both approved by the FDA in the 1980s. Documentation shows that early trials for these vaccines often involved small groups and short follow-up periods for adverse events. For example, the Recombivac's HB trial was as short as 5 days post-vaccination. Early studies for hepatitis B vaccines typically included hundreds of participants, not millions. And here's a fast fact for you. Autism diagnosis started to spike in the 1980s. Before the 1980s, autism rates were 1 in 10,000. In the early 1980s, they rose to 1 in 2,000, then to 1 in 1,000. As of 2025, the autism rate is 1 in 31. The CDC's 2025 recommended childhood and adolescent immunization schedule outlines that children from birth to 18 years should follow the routine vaccine schedule of about 30 to 35 vaccines. In 1970, the CDC's recommended childhood immunization schedule included vaccines for 5 diseases: smallpox, polio, diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis. Children typically received 5 to 7 doses total.
That's what you need to know. In Dallas, Christina Aguayo.